you have to let humans do what humans do best, which is to be strategic and proactive and creative and focused on the client. Because if you're not doing that stuff, you're just a poorly run, inefficient SaaS company.
Now, selling a company is a huge milestone. What were the key factors in your decision to exit, and what lessons did you learn from the acquisition process?
So the key factors were basically one of kind of like industry level macro dynamics combined with sort of my like personal what I want to do with the rest of my life stuff. The former was more important. So specifically, my company was an Amazon agency. I started it when I could count my competitors on one hand. I sold the company in 2020, but I started to take seriously the idea of selling it in like 2017 and kind of ramp into that. That was also part of the motivation to accelerate the top line. And what I saw happening was the industry was starting to get crowded. And the big guys, the big holdcos and other kind of, indie, but still like large, 1,000-person plus agencies were starting to pay attention to Amazon and e-commerce. And I wasn't so naive to think that, I can just outcompete them forever. I knew that their kind of collective horsepower was going to start to become really problematic at some point. On the other end of the market, there were a ton of like 1 to 3 person consultants jumping into the space. And so I had this combination of like big guys putting pressure on me from up above and then the little guys nipping at my heels. And basically I realized that over, some period of time, you're going to have this consolidating effect because the agencies that were still independently owned, one would get squeezed from a margin standpoint, but two, and I think this is more important, they would start to lose out strategically because the connection points to the other components of marketing services, creative, programmatic, data, et cetera, were going to start to become really important. And the idea that a commerce practice or function could just live on its own was going to start to become less compelling versus a true kind of unified offering where commerce was part of that offering. So I basically decided I want to be on the right side of that trend, not on the wrong side of it when it's too late. All my competitors have sold and I'm like the last man standing. So so it was also a good time in terms of like kind of overall performance of the business revenue. It was in 2020, so commerce was very hot. So it was just like the stars aligned, kind of made sense. Okay, if I'm going to, for me, it was an exit, but it was also, I was moving on to partner with the acquiring company, right? It's an agency. So there's an earn-out integration and all this stuff that you want to go through with a strategic. And I planned on it and I did that. So I kind of, it was basically how do you pick the right dance partner? But like I knew I wanted to be at the dance. I just needed to pick the right partner. And lessons I learned a lot. It was the first acquisition or the first exit I had, one of one so far, at least. I guess I learned this. There's no shortcuts. There's no like selling a thing, maybe if you're in NFTs or something, you can sell it and take the money and run, right? But like, you better be really excited about the person and the entity buying your company. You better genuinely believe in their strategic vision and how it pairs with yours. You better like the people on the other side because you're going to be working with them for, at least in the services game, like where you have earnouts, you're going to be working with them for years. If it doesn't work, you either both win or you both lose. Like there's no like, I sold it, I'm done. Like it's just another chapter in the journey. And I knew that and I kind of planned for that, but doing the deal really enforced that, yes, that is like the way that someone should think about this.
What trends do you see emerging in the marketing and agency space in the next few years? And how are you positioning your ventures to capitalize on them?
So I think I mentioned this before, but I think agentic AI is going to be really important. I think the virtualization of photo and video shoots is really important, not just for the creative agency, but for other agencies that will now have, agencies in other industries that will have like access to assets that would have been previously cost prohibitive. I think that changes a lot of things. Customization at scale is a super important trend. And this applies to a bunch of different domains. It applies to paid media. It applies to organic content. It applies to outbound. basically the idea that almost every single recipient, if not micro-targeted cohorts of recipients, will receive custom messaging, custom creative. Like if you and I both see an ad, it's no longer like we see the same billboard. We'll see very specific pieces of creative that are geared towards our kind of interests and data that's been captured around, about us. Those are some of the big ones. I will say this, and it's going to have people roll their eyes. The metaverse thing was super hot 2 years ago, and it's like totally in the trough of disillusionment. Everyone say, oh, it's a dud. The Apple Vision Pro, didn't sell very many units. Like, none of this stuff has taken off. It's gimmicky and silly. I don't believe that. I still think it's going to be this, like, a very important consumer technology trend. It's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen next year. But within 5 years, I think there will start to be significant pickup of headsets or glasses for like mainstream personal computing, not just hobbyists and fanboys, but like real, like normal, average daily user kind of use of this stuff. And the 3D internet is going to change a lot of stuff when it happens, and it will happen. It's not going to happen right away. So there's been a ton of hype, and I get there was a bubble. I get all that, but like it is a trend that will play out.
How do you balance scalability with maintaining high quality, personalized service?
This is really hard, but it is achievable. So I think you have to create a framework that allows for kind of efficiency and repeatability. But then inside of that framework, you have to let humans do what humans do best, which is to be strategic and proactive and creative and focused on the client. Because if you're not doing that stuff, you're just a poorly run, inefficient SaaS company, right? If you over productize an agency, you're actually diminishing the value that an agency should bring to begin with, which is the fact that all this stuff is specific and customized and strategic. But on the other side of that, if you just have a bunch of people running around like doing whatever they want, it's a recipe for disaster. It can't scale. So it's really about the balance of those two things. And yeah, I mean, if done right, it can work. But if you take it too far in either extreme, it either creates a situation where you basically aren't profitable because you just have scope creep all over the place. Like everyone's doing a different thing. You're not profitable and you're not scalable if you have too little structure. But if you have too much structure, it's actually kind of like a bad client experience and a race to the bottom in terms of differentiation, which creates a whole different set of problems, basically high churn. So you've got to kind of walk the line between those two things.
Great. Well, this is a fascinating conversation. Yeah, you gave so many good insights. I think it's probably going to be worth rewatching. How can our audience connect with you, and where would you like to direct people to learn more about your work?
Yeah, thanks, David. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's kind of my home base. John Ghiorso, you'll find me if you search my name. And then one of the companies is up and running. It's called Influent Social. Influent.co is the domain. So check them out. The outbound email agency is not yet launched, but it'll launch in Q1. And then, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I'm certainly not shy about talking about the future agencies and what's working and not working and the whole build in public thing. So
great. We'll put those links in the show notes. And thanks once again.
Yeah, thank you, David.